Hello, my name is Michelle and you're watching From Surviving to Thriving. So I've gotten a lot of emails regarding the playlist that I have up now entitled Subscriber Stories. If you haven't seen that playlist, here's the link for it right now. Basically what it is stories that have been sent in by me by different subscribers. They're stories that have been sent in by people that want a piece of what they're going through, maybe analyzed and picked apart for their own benefit, but also they send it in not for themselves, but also to share what they're going through. Because sometimes reading about information in the form of a textbook explanation is very different than living it, experiencing it, and knowing what it feels like. And so they share their story so that other people can be validated in their own experiences, as well as kind of learn from their mistakes and what they did that worked as well. So I want to thank everyone that does send in information to be shared with the channel. A quick reminder, if you are wanting to send something in to be shared publicly, make sure that you live in a one-party consent state, which gives you permission to send in recorded conversations as long as you are part of the conversation. So a quick Google search will let you know if the state you live in is a one-party consent state or not. Okay, so the reason I wanted to make this video is because I've had a lot of people ask, how can you tell which is the narcissist in a conversation? And that's an important question to answer, because obviously the person making the recording has the upper hand because they know they're being recorded. So they're going to put their best foot forward. I've had many people say that, you know, Michelle, if my ex recorded me at certain moments, I would sound like the narcissist because I've lost my cool. I've raised my voice. I've acted in a way that was contrary to my normal way of being out of exasperation or because of the pressure that I was under at that moment. And so that's very understandable. So I wanted to mention 5 things that I look for. And again, when these conversations are put up, it's not diagnosing anyone as much as it is dissecting a conversation to see what we can learn, to see communication styles that could be emotionally abusive and how we can handle them. That's the main point, how to handle it, how to be able to face situations when you're stuck in a situation, how to be able to face it in a way that is more productive and less emotionally damaging for you. So some things to look for are what the goal of the conversation, what the goal of each person is when they're conversing with each other. For example, you'll notice one person is trying to reason, trying to get through, and that's different from a person trying to control. Ways that you'll often hear this is one person stating how they feel about something and the other person dictating the other person's feelings. So when you hear somebody dictating how the other person feels and the person that's trying to express their feelings and they're not being heard, that's something to just look at as far as not healthy communication patterns, okay? Number 2 is that a person that is narcissistic will often use you statements, while a person that's the victim in the conversation will use I statements. For example, they'll say, what I'm trying to do is this, I would like this, this is how I feel. That's a healthy way of communicating your feelings. Normally, if you're talking with a narcissist, the narcissist won't say, well, I feel this, and I would like this, this is the way I see it. No, they'll say, no, you're trying to do this, or you just want that, or you're just trying to accomplish this. And they'll be accusing the other person instead of focusing on how they feel. Instead of trying to communicate their feelings, they'll try to, once again, dictate the other person's feelings, and they'll do that with you statements. And the you statements are always very accusatory. It's always like the other person has some hugely bad motive, and the narcissist is convinced that it's such a bad motive. So no matter how much the victim tries to reason by saying, no, I don't feel that way, this is how I feel, it's always met with, no, you feel this, or you are that. When you hear that conflict like that, it kind of you begin to see who's communicating in an unhealthy way and who's communicating in a healthier way. The third thing that you can look for, and this has to do with when you finally can't take enough and you lose your cool. Because the truth of the matter is that if you are a victim of narcissistic abuse, you have lost your cool. You have been the one that has raised your voice. You have been the one that's emotionally out of control. And what you don't realize often is that a narcissist trains you to reach that emotional state of mind, and they train you with time to reach it faster. For example, in one situation I know of whose ex would insult her for a very long period of time, just every day, just little jabs constantly. And she would take it and take it for weeks. A month would go by, a month and a half, and then she would flare up, because you can only take so much negativity being tossed at you before you finally, even the calmest person is going to react. And the way she described it was, as soon as she blew up, he would calm down. It was like a load off of his shoulders. And when she would blow up, he would point the finger and say, see, this is why we have problems, because of you. Look at how emotional you are. Look at how out of control you are. Meanwhile, the month and a half to 2 months of constant jab and constant unkindness and mean and being insulting was irrelevant in the minds of the narcissist. It was just that moment where she lost her cool that was the only time he wanted, or the only thing he wanted to focus on. If you listen to a victim of narcissistic abuse, let's say they were recorded at that moment where they lost their cool, you'll hear a lot of pain. You'll hear a lot of confusion. You know, I don't understand why you say that about me, why you see me in that light, why you're doing this to me. You'll hear a lot of pain, and they'll be defending themselves. Often, you know, as if they're being attacked and they're just overwhelmed, and you'll hear them defending themselves. Whereas if you hear a lot of yelling and it's a narcissist, they're really very accusatory. They are always on the attack. In other words, the narcissist's rage is full of anger. That's the only emotion you'll see or hear. They'll be attacking the other person. It's never, looking for a solution. It's attacking and teaching or saying to the other person, my way or the highway. They don't bend. They don't try to understand the other person's feelings. It's just very loud, full of anger, on the attack, unwilling to listen. Whereas the victim, once again, is just exasperated from all of the things I just mentioned. They just can't seem to get through. They feel like they're banging their head against the wall. They feel like they're going crazy. They start to get emotional, and if you pay attention, it's all pain and anger at the treatment, but they're just, you'll hear this exasperatedness as to why they can't seem to get through. A fourth thing that you can look for as far as who's communicating in a healthy way, who's communicating in an unhealthy way, is a person that is a victim of narcissistic abuse will normally focus on the behavior of the person, how they're being treated. They'll say things like, why are you always yelling? Why are you accusing me of this? Why do you always say such horrible things about me? Why do you ignore me for so long? Why do you do this? They'll focus on the behavior, whereas someone narcissistic will focus on the person. They won't say, you hurt me when you do that. They'll say, you're a bad person. You have bad motives. You are bad. That's just who you are. And so they won't attack the behaviors as much as they will attack the core of a person. And that's conditional love. That's you're good when you work, and you're bad when you're acting in a way that isn't to my benefit. So that's something to look for as well. And probably the communication skill that really gives a narcissist away is the lack of empathy. For example, if two people are in a heated dispute and they're both, their emotions are all over the place, and one person starts to get emotional and feel pain, maybe cry, or just express their personal pain, not attacking, just expressing how much it's affecting them and hurting them, a healthy individual will react to that show of vulnerability. If they care about this person, they're going to change in some slight way, no matter how mad they are. They're going to say something that shows that they see that person's pain. They may be angry at the moment, but they see the pain. It's not their intention to cause that pain, but they're wanting this issue resolved, and that's something that they need to work through. But they'll show a desire to acknowledge the person's pain and want to reach a conclusion, want to reach some kind of resolution. Whereas a narcissist, when they see the person's pain, they have zero empathy. This is the biggest giveaway in a conversation. And I've had several conversations sent in where the person winds up crying. And it's sad sometimes when I read comments where somebody's criticizing them, saying, oh, you're recording and yet you're crying. That's just trying to make yourself look like, the victim. It's not so much the crying that makes the person look like the victim, but how the other person responds to the crying. For example, the narcissist completely ignores the person. I had one audio sent in where the narcissist sees the person in pain. If they don't ignore it, they will make fun of you for feeling sad. They will make fun of you for crying. They will mock your pain, and then they will ignore it as if it's so insignificant, it's not even worth their attention. And in one audio, I remember one of the guys that was being recorded just begins to read the mail as she's crying. First, he makes fun of her, and then he's reading the mail. And when you're listening to it from the outside, you can see just a complete lack of empathy. And again, it's all about control. The narcissist is wanting that person to act in a way that is beneficial for them. So that lack of empathy, I would say, is probably the biggest indicator of who the narcissist is, or I should say who's displaying narcissistic tendencies in that conversation, or who's displaying unhealthy communication behaviors. So for those that sent in emails saying, well, am I the narcissist? Because there have been times that I've been the one that's, yelling, that I've been the one that's out of control, that I've been the one that's just sounds awful. I've lost it. I've been pushed more than I can take. Am I the narcissist? Going over those 5 points, and there's many others, but just for the sake of this video, going over those 5 points really would help you to see that just because a person loses it, just because a person gets over emotional or reacts to abuse or somebody else provoking them, doesn't make you a narcissist. And it's important to realize this too, because not every narcissist is the one that's yelling and screaming. The most dangerous narcissist, I would say, the covert narcissist, and that's because it's the hidden narcissist, it's the sheep in wolf's clothing narcissist. They don't always lose their cool like that. And so you have to really look for those more subtle forms of abuse in order to realize what's going on. In fact, it's the covert narcissist that often confuses their victim into thinking or convincing the victim that this whole problem is them because of the way they're reacting. And what they're not realizing is that they are undergoing a daily dose of subtle forms of abuse to the point that they can't take it anymore, and they're reacting to that. And the narcissist is trying to use that reaction as proof that they are the problem. So it's really important to understand how they communicate, how to identify them in a conversation so that you don't get confused with being the narcissist yourself just because you don't handle everything calm, cool, and collected. And knowing these subtle forms of abuse will help you to kind of open your eyes as to why conversations with a narcissist seem to spin in circles, seem to repeat over and over without ever reaching any kind of resolution. And once you can spot what they do, you can start to learn healthy behaviors so that you don't get sucked into those constant drama battles that leave you feeling drained and emotionally stomped on.